Hi, it's Elizabeth MacDonald here from Halifax, Nova Scotia, and I'm delighted that we're going to be discussing the dancer-musician connection at the upcoming Let's Talk. This is a subject I think a lot about. It's important to me. I talk about it a lot at class, and it's for this reason. I feel that that connection of music to dance and music through the dancer and the dancer's response to the music is the essence of musicality. Yet so often, particularly in contemporary dance spaces and opportunities, the dancers and musicians seem to have slipped away from each other. In a performance space, the musicians are behind us, they're off to one side, they're down in the pit. In competition, the musician's off to one side, and in some cases are working with recorded music. And even in sessions sometimes, the musicians are in semicircles and circles, and the dynamic is very much between them, as we dance, as we do our steps to one side. So in essence, the musicians are playing for the dancers. And on the dancer's side, it's equally pronounced. We spend our time looking at our reflections in mirrors in the studio, absorbed in our technique, absorbed in our appearance and our presentation, whether we're performing, whether we're competing, and even in less formal situations, we can become absorbed in what we're doing, in our making of sound and how it looks and how it feels. We wind up dancing to the music. And sometimes, if we're truly absorbed in what we're doing, we could find ourselves dancing at the music. But we all know the magic that happens when these two entities start moving back towards each other. When you have that true connection with a musician or with the musicians, when you're having that sense of conversation, when you only need look at each other to know what's happening next. That moment, that zone, that experience is magical, and it's why I dance, and it's what I look for now in opportunities to dance. So I'd love to hear what everyone else is thinking and doing, and how we're bringing that sense of connection into our classes and into our dance spaces. And I look forward to seeing you this weekend.
Hello guys, it's Lauren Smith here, and I just wanted to contribute to the conversation that you're having today. And for me, obviously growing up within the festival tradition was unbelievably special. And when I try and pinpoint what was so special, the music within the association comes top of my list. And I was asked a question recently about, how has the tradition maybe formed part of my identity? And it was such a moment of clarity for me. The tradition has formed a massive part of who I am as a person, but also a dancer and a performer, a teacher and a choreographer as well. And when I think back to all the wonderful competitions, particularly in my senior years, it didn't feel like a competition. It was like a night of entertainment, and the music just always added an incredible, feel and atmosphere to the evening, and Ian in particular was always very good at bringing rise and fall into your dance and kind of connecting with the performer when they were on stage as well, which we obviously really appreciated. And even those special moments, you know, in class, sitting around as a young girl and watching my teachers choreograph, make up set dances, teach them the dancers, and just listening to that music constantly was so invaluable now when I look back. So maybe that can spark a conversation with you guys about how the music within different associations can form a part of of the dancer's identity.
Hi, my name is Anna Lethard. I'm a Sean-Nós dancer from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Hey, I'm Danny Diamond. I'm a fiddle player from born in Belfast. Lived most of my life in Dublin and currently in Minneapolis.
So we live in Minneapolis, but I was living, both of us, in Ireland for the last 10 years. And I feel very fortunate as a dancer to be married to a musician, especially one who respects and values dance as part of the tradition. And
Thank you.
as a dancer, I notice when I'm dancing, you know, most of the dancing I would do would be kind of casual or informal in a session or at a festival. And there's definitely a vibe that you get from the musicians of whether or not your dancing is welcome. And Danny would always be very welcoming to dancers, and maybe that comes from being married to a dancer, but for any dancer that comes into the session, he's always very welcome and communicative in his playing. And so there's a lot of back and forth, just like there would be between musicians with a dancer and Danny, I think.
That's good to hear. Yeah, that's the ideal, I guess, where you can really communicate with each other and express something. I didn't know, I wasn't as aware of dance coming up. I kind of regret that a little, that I didn't play in Cayley bands or have that kind of grounding of how dance and music really are so fundamentally linked. Like I just knew academically or whatever, or intellectually, but I hadn't really put it into practice. And anything I know of that really comes through, or almost all of it comes through Anna, you know. And then I've worked with other types of dance as a professional musician over the years as well, with contemporary dance, especially on other Irish Sean-Nós dancers too. It's important to be able to adjust your playing to facilitate some kind of a connection, I think. Is it not just, you know, play your music and let the dancer kind of survive or not alongside. It has to I mean, I find, you know, kind of be open to a certain movement might make you respond musically differently or draw something out of you that you didn't even ever do before, you know, in the moment.
I think it's important too for dancers to think of it like that too, and not just dance a certain it depends on the type of dancing, but for Sean-Nós it's so related to the music, and so it really helps. I'm not a musician myself, but I grew up listening to Irish music, and being in a relationship with a musician is really helpful because I hear a lot more music, and I can I know Danny's playing in particular, and also like Danny's sister Helen is a great musician and singer, and I know her singing so well that I can dance to her singing as well, because I've just spent more time, you know, listening, and I think I've learned a lot from being around musicians, which I think is really valuable for dancers to think of it. It's not just you're dancing on top of music, you're dancing with it, you're a participant and like a percussionist alongside it. So we've learned a lot from each other.
Yeah, it definitely helps, like, actually play more rhythmically, or like less, I don't know, indulgently or something, you know, like playing for you is a very good exercise. You couldn't recommend it more for other musicians.
Yes, highly recommend making friends with dancers and musicians. Thank you.
Thanks, bye-bye.
When I'm producing tunes, and I produce tunes, I always kind of say that, like, if I can dance to that, that's a good quality of that tune. Is being able to dance to the tune. I think the last few tunes I've made, because I like to dance myself, I kind of live by the expression that the best dancers make the best tunes, or the people who like to dance most make the best tunes. And I think that's the case. It's because they can feel it. They can feel the totality of what they're doing, making the music, especially in electronic music. More often than not with beats, it's, you know, you're obviously making it to dance music, electronic music, whatever the case might be. So the best dancers, the people who like to dance most, make the best tunes. That's what I think in the field of electronic music with beats.
Hi, my name's Mike Ruff, and I'm a folk musician, dancer, and teacher, with a bit of historical dance as well. I only took up the accordion when I joined a local folk dance group. Then at uni, I was challenged to play for the Morris dance, and since then have always loved playing for dance in many different forms and genres and settings. So what have I learned about the relationship between musician and dancer in all this time? Mainly that it is flexible and varied without definitive answers, and it must be a dialogue to be truly effective. Clearly, when playing for groups of dancers, whether Morris sides, performance team, or at a barn dance, it is for the musician or band to lead the dance and set clear rhythms and phrasing for the dancers. The more one is in sympathy with that style, then the easier it is. And having some basic knowledge and even danceability really helps. Usually, the lineup of the band dictates what can be done, but if every instrument is capable of carrying a phrase, then there can be a real flexibility within the phrase. Playing for solo dance or a small group can be even more rewarding and create a much more extensive dialogue the more you work together. Instances of this for me were with rapper sword dancing, a tradition of English dance in fast 6/8 time, where I found I was delaying individual beats to fit in certain points of the dance, and for solo Morris jigs, where the slow section varied depending on the ability and energy of the dancer. Overall, the job of the musician is to provide the framework for the dancers to perform at their best. What live music can do is also provide an additional lift and excitement. How one does that is almost a separate topic in itself. But also bearing in mind that the job is to enhance the dance, not to distract from it. As a dancer or teacher, I definitely want the music I've got to have a real drive and at the same time to offer that little bit of extra inspiration. Thank you.
experience dancing in the Kekele ensemble a few years ago was an incredibly powerful one in many aspects. Coming from structured early and Irish dances, I noticed our instructor's lilting had similarities to the lilting in Irish dance class. Although his words describe specific movements and not necessarily the tune or rhythm itself. It was also interesting to observe how some of us would act upon internalized rhythm structures based on regular beat counts in our head, rather than actually listening to the master drum's commands to perform a certain action. We had to translate John's words into the language of the drum, which was a real challenge for our ears, especially after practicing with his lilting first, then just the one drum, and then the whole percussive ensemble. We had a really hard time hearing the commands of the master drum, and it took us a good while to get adjusted and to get it right.
Okay, don't play, let me play it. There you go. Let's try it again. Sorry, this is your cue.
The master drum was the boss, and we had to listen closely to what it said to us to perform the right movements, especially as they didn't come in a structured beat pattern.